Hey everyone, welcome back to the YOUnify podcast. My name is Brandyn Keating. I'm the co-founder and CEO of YOUnify, a nonprofit organization helping you flourish and thrive, and also the host of our podcast. I'm super excited to be joined today by Dr. Kristine Larson. She is an assistant professor and program director of special education at Loyola University in Maryland. And she has been a middle school teacher, a yogi, and serves as a senior fellow at the Harvard Human Flourishing Network, a senior fellow for the Human Flourishing Network through the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard University. And she is also the founder and chair of the Justice for Flourishing Interest Group. Kristine, welcome. I'm so glad you were able to join us today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Hey, so Kristine, you've described your work as centered around flourishing. And for those new to the term, what does flourishing mean to you?
Yeah. So I know that there's like the formal definition that we often use at the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard from Tyler Vanderweel. But for me, I really think that it is about, I would say flourishing is about moving towards the life that you want to live.
So, Kristine, I know you as a well-developed leader. You've worked in special education. You have leadership roles in the Human Flourishing Network. I would love to know more about what young Kristine was like. How did you become you?
Young Kristine, I would say my mom would have described me as really energetic. And on other days, she might have described me as difficult and potentially slightly mischievous. And so I think, I can think back to when I was really young. There was we were on a cruise, and my family is Swedish, and we were in Norway celebrating my grandmother's 80th birthday. And there was this part where we're going on the cruise, and you are you cross the Arctic Circle, and there's like a big celebration. It's a big thing if anybody's familiar. And the pool was closed. No one's supposed to go in the pool. And we crossed the Arctic Circle, and I'm probably 4 or 5 at this point, and everybody's celebrating. And I just jumped in the pool. So these types of things. This is like, I think there's a character, Chashiom. It's like kind of doing things the opposite of what people want you to do. So that was me in a nutshell.
I like that. Definitely blazing your own path, right?
Yes, for sure.
Pretty good leadership trait. And also, like, if there's a pool nearby, who doesn't want to go in the pool, right? When you're 4.
For sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so for people who know you, like through your professional life, what is something that might surprise them about you?
Yeah, I think the idea of being mischievous or mischievous, that is probably surprising. And I had a little bit of like, I wouldn't say like mean girl, but like a little bit, there are ways that I would look back on my life now and be like, why would I ever act like that? So just, it's a long way from flourishing. Let's just say that. Yeah,
well, it is always a journey to get from wherever we start to flourishing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So speaking of this word flourishing that we talk about a lot on the podcast, what would you say your definition of flourishing is?
A great question. So for me, I'm always thinking about what's the life that I want to live. And I think that that's really what it is about. It's like moving towards that life that we want to live.
I love the way you describe it as sort of like a dynamic process rather than like a destination that we just get to. Are there certain things right now, or is there something you can think of that is maybe challenging you when it comes to your own flourishing and maybe something that's helping you to flourish and thrive?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say challenging. I'm working on being a little bit more playful. There's something about me that is sometimes so serious, and I love laughing. I mean, even here on this
Yeah.
podcast, like I love laughing with you and my friends and family. It's one of my favorite things to do. But like being loose and just being more present and in the moment, that's something that I'm currently working on. So having
Yeah.
fun, playing, that kind of thing.
I love that. Yeah. Sometimes those of us who, sort of tend to lead in the world get into this very serious tunnel vision focus, right? And forget the human parts and the fun parts of ourselves. So I love that as a focus for flourishing. Now, you've had quite a journey in your career. You've been a middle school teacher. You've done research. You're a professor now. You've done coaching. And you're, as we mentioned, you're taking a lot of leadership in the space of education and flourishing. What first drew you to this type of work?
Probably two things. I would say one, like potentially my own lack of flourishing and or a little bit of burnout, and two, seeing other people burning out around me. I did a lot of work with teachers at the time when this idea of like well-being really started to resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing a lot of coaching, and the teachers that I was coaching, or the teachers that the teachers that I was coaching, they would always want to share their stories with me. And a lot of them had some pretty hard stories to share, but they wanted to talk to somebody about them. And I became that sort of sounding board. Like I was an external coach in schools. And just listening to story after story, I just realized how much teachers had on them, on their plates. And I just wanted to do something to alleviate that. And I resonated with them because I was overworking myself. And so there was this really unique position that I was in, where I was ending a postdoc position that I was in. And then I was starting another position a month later. And so I took that month and I went to India and I trained to be a yogi.
Wow. That's so amazing. Yeah. And I think many people who haven't directly experienced teaching or don't have somebody close to them who's a teacher think like, oh, this is an easy job. You get out before 5 o'clock and you have the summer off and you have all these school vacations. But in reality, it's really intense, right? There's grading after school. There's all the preparation that folks do for the classroom. So it does make sense, even though it might not be immediately obvious to everybody, that there would be some burnout in that setting. Were there any specific experiences early in your own teaching career that made you realize that something needed to change in how we support flourishing?
Well, it's interesting because as a teacher, I wasn't focused on my own well-being for sure. I was staying until like 6 o'clock at night, lesson planning. I mean, and at that time I was in my early 20s, so it didn't really impact me. And I think once we have relationships and then maybe a family, and then we start to have a more full lives, then burnout we're more susceptible to sort of how do we divide our time. So I was focused more on equity issues in my context when I was in my early career, and flourishing didn't come until into my doc program.
Gotcha. And you have worked with a lot of teachers on classroom climate and behavior. What do you think educators are missing when it comes to flourishing?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that they're missing anything because they already have so much going on. I would say if I were to ask of anything, would be maybe just to have the domains of flourishing in the back of their minds as their for themselves and their students. And so a lot of people say, well, we can't add one more thing. And my hope is that teachers can see the integration of flourishing in their classrooms as opposed to it being an add-on.
Yeah, that integration is so important as a concept, I think, because that's actually what enables all of the other parts to be easier, I would imagine, right?
Yep, for sure.
So how do you think traditional education systems fall short on supporting both students and teachers to fully flourish?
That's a great question as well. So I would say that one of our expressions as humans is creativity. And sometimes I think that there are instances where I don't know that teachers feel like they can express themselves creatively. And I don't know that students in schools feel like they can express themselves creatively. There's a school called School of Humanity that someone in the Flourishing Network actually directed my attention to. And in School of Humanity, their philosophy is like you learn by doing, you follow your passion, you tackle global issues. And if all schools could be like that, that's like my dream. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I love that idea of, just following your passion and aligning rather than students having to align with the school and the curriculum. How can we align the curriculum to what the students are already passionate about? Because everyone has passion inside of them. So how can we allow that to flourish?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, talking about the journey of flourishing as we were earlier, it's like, we're born with that passion and that purpose, and then it sort of can get constrained by some of the institutions around us. And then we go on this journey to rediscover it. What if we could just cultivate it from the very start in young people?
Yeah, and that's such a good point. I mean, I think about as we get older, we have more choices. And choice is also such an important way of navigating the world. And one that is inherent, I think, in us. And so as we go through, I recognized in middle school, maybe I had the choice of like French or Spanish. Woo.
Right.
And then in high school, you have a little bit more choice. And then in college, I mean, the world becomes a little bit more of your oyster. And then after that, it's like, follow your bliss, follow your passion. What inspires you? Do that.
Yeah.
But there's all of those. The unfortunate part about that is that there's all of these steps that need to happen before you can go follow your bliss. And that is where I think the School of Humanity is really interesting in its approach to being different than our traditional education systems.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like there are the structural constraints that maybe a traditional classroom imposes that we then have to kind of internally peel away before we can actually access all the choices that are available to us.
Yeah, like fingers crossed. I hope you make it to wherever you want to go. And if we go back to my definition of flourishing, live the life that you want to live, not what other people want for you, but like really what you have the passion for.
Yeah. So what does a flourishing classroom actually look and feel like in practice?
So I'm coming at this from two different lenses because I'm also part of my job is teaching as well. So I've been in many classrooms where I would consider them flourishing classrooms, and I hope that I create a flourishing classroom at the university level.
Yeah.
But I would say there are a couple things that come to mind. One, being student-centered and co-creating the classroom, whether that's the environment, whether that's different projects that you're working on. I think that there's a lot to be said for co-creating and recognizing that this is our classroom. It's not my classroom, it's our classroom.
I love that, sort of engendering that sense of agency in young people right from the get-go, and medium people in your college setting.
Right. And a lot of times we don't necessarily ask kids, like, what would you like to learn about?
Right.
I can think of my own kiddo where, they're learning through like their project-based learning is around like science fair. where they get to choose what they work on with Science Fair or National History Day project. But beyond that, I would say that their experience has been very scripted in terms of this is what
Really?
we're learning, and that's that.
Wow. So we mentioned at the top that as part of the Flourishing Network, you chair the Justice for Flourishing interest group. So can you talk a little bit about what that means and entails? What does justice add to the conversation about flourishing, and how do you think about the role of that group?
Great question. So I would say that justice is the context in which people flourish. And so
Mm.
I often think about, the definition that Vanderweel uses, which was updated from 2017 to 2023. But it's the state in which all aspects of a person's life are good. And then in 2023, it expanded into including the contexts in which the person lives. And I think that is such an important addition to that definition. And so really, when we think of what does it take for someone to flourish, justice becomes the context.
So we certainly have not yet reached a world, I don't think anyone would say, where all systems are equitable. So do you think people can truly flourish in systems that are inequitable, that we're still working to balance?
No. I will say the reason I say that is because if the definition includes the contexts in which a person lives, then certainly not. There's a nuance in some discussions that I've had about people can be well, and that might be an internal state where you can sort of ignore the things that are happening, not ignore, but for lack of a better word right now, the things that are going on around you. But your context contributes to your well-being. So if you can't access certain things that you want to access, then that, in its by the very nature, you are that's impeding your well-being and your flourishing, whether it's individual or community flourishing.
Yeah. So we probably all observe or maybe have heard stories about people in really tough situations who manage to rise above or manage some sort of heroic version of appearing well. But it sounds like what you are saying is that that's only part of the picture. And the rest of the picture is that the context actually has to be one that's equitable and fully allows flourishing.
Yeah, I think there's a balance there. But yes, context is important. Yes.
Yeah. And so how do you think about the relationship between individual flourishing and systemic change?
Yeah, this is a both and question. So I wrote a paper a few years ago with some colleagues around using contemplative practices to neutralize implicit bias.
Oh, wow.
And that was a first step in understanding the nature of our internal sort of state and how we can, that's the thing that we have control over. We might not have control over the external, but we do have control over internal. So these contemplative practices, I mean, it's very simple, but it was, you start out with a breathing activity and then you do a loving kindness meditation around whatever bias that you are maybe struggling with. And then you can move into a gratitude. And so like a gratitude list. And so using first centering the body with breathing and then this loving kindness meditation and then a gratitude, it really shifts your perception and the way that you might view what we would categorize as other.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm very excited to read that paper. We think a lot about in YOUnify the relationship between inner practices, relational practices, and systemic change. And we really can't create change in the world if we're not well internally. So really appreciate that.
And just something to add very quickly with that, I mean, systems are made up of people. And so
Yes.
if a person's internal state or their mind, their emotions, etc., are not well, then the system likely isn't well or flourishing.
Right.
So
So, how can leaders or organizations begin to integrate both justice and flourishing into their work?
great question. So some of the most effective leaders I know, they start with listening. And I would like to capitalize on that word and um, say that listening is an act of justice.
Oh, I
Oftentimes,
love that.
yeah, oftentimes we can, go into communities and think we know what they want or need or work with a certain population and, have a lot of theories and a lot of knowledge. And at the end of the day, if you're not listening to the people around you, I think you you could be a better leader if you listened to the people around you.
Yeah, so critical for leadership in any field, and listening as an act of justice. I just love that phrase. That's beautiful. So, coming back to the life of Kristine, personally, what does flourishing look like for you in your own life right now?
Oh, I have to say, so once I started focusing on flourishing, I
Hmm.
started to flourish more. And I think that's a
Interesting.
really key piece to what I'm about to say. Uh,
Hmm.
so I would say that the things that, what flourishing looks like in my life, good food, good friends, family. We have a dog, so fur babies. uh, just being able to uh, live to good purpose
Mm.
and serve others, co-create with others. I really appreciate the word co-creation because that's what this world is. We are co-creating with each other, and that to me, there's no better feeling for me than co-creating with others. I love that. There's an energy that happens that is so inspiring, energizing, moving. And I just feel like when you co create, you can change the world.
Very true. Very true. And, I feel like, particularly in our Western culture, there is such a culture of individualism and sort of, we always talk about siloing in our institutions. We talk about, the sort of nuclear family and leaving the house as soon as we turn 18 and, sort of separating generationally in a way that other cultures do not. And I think culturally we miss a lot of opportunities for co-creation if we're not attentive to it. So I love that you're centering that in your sort of personal flourishing. And I agree with you. We can change the world when we are co-creating for sure. Um, are there any practices or habits that help you stay grounded and flourishing in your day to day?
Yeah, I would say routines are really important in my own flourishing. So, just to give you a little snapshot of some of the things I do,
Yeah.
when I wake up, the first thing I do, I try to think of something positive as I'm getting out of bed. So something I'm grateful for. And then I will go downstairs. I make coffee for my wife, and we just take some time in the morning to have some quiet time. And
Love
then we go
that.
on a walk with our dog. And I think that that's really important because we get to catch up. So there's that idea of close social relations. I never feel disconnected in any way because each day we're connecting on something. And when I come home, I do yoga, I do some meditation and prayer, and it's this space and time in the beginning of my day is it's important to my flourishing, and it grounds me for the rest of the day.
Love that. So if listeners were to take just one idea from this conversation, or maybe just one thing they could do after they are done listening or watching the podcast, what would you want that to be?
Play, have fun, wear life lightly. I mean, we're so serious. I think that was one of the things that I recognized as I was talking to you. And the idea of like focus, like what you focus on increases. So, when I started focusing on flourishing, trying to live in that creation mentality. I know that's more than one thing, and I apologize. But, and everybody's different. So what works for me when I say, I do yoga and meditate, like people might not resonate with that, and that's okay. You have to find the thing that works for you. And so maybe that's my one takeaway. Do the thing that works for you. And in order to find the thing that works for you, you have to try a lot of different things. So explore and have fun while you're exploring and finding what works for you.
I love that. And wear life lightly. That's such a beautiful phrase, a lovely mantra. So I'm taking that one away for sure, along with listening as an act of justice. So for folks who would like to maybe learn more about your work or connect with you, support your work in some way, how can they do that? How can they connect with you?
Thank you so much for asking. I would say the easiest way is to find me at Loyola. That's very loyola.edu. And then if they're interested in the Justice for Flourishing, that would be amazing. That is justiceforflourishing.org. And there's a membership form on our website, so they can just fill that out. And then I will be in touch with them.
And what type of people can join that? Do they have to be in a specific line of work, or what are the requirements?
It is open to anyone who cares about those two topics. And we would love to have you.
Amazing. Well, this time has absolutely flown by, Kristine. It's such a pleasure to talk with you. I hope that you'll come back soon. For those who are listening and watching, thank you so much for joining. We will have all of the links to connect with Kristine and her work in the description below on YouTube and in comments in our link in bio across all of our socials, depending on where you're finding this podcast. And if you enjoy the podcast, if you feel like it's helping you, another way you can help others is by subscribing, clicking that like button, sharing. All of those things help more people access this information. So that's just one other quick thing that you can do to help yourself, your community, help others flourish and thrive. Thanks again so much for joining us, Kristine. We're going to have you on again because I know there's so much more to get to.
This was so much fun. I really appreciate the invitation, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yes.